Hi everyone, this is going to be my first YouTube video, and I'm going to be talking about my personal feelings on the 2008 Democrat debate that was held in South Carolina just a couple of days ago. This is just my opinion on the whole process and the candidates, so don't read too much into it. And for those of you who are interested or were wondering, I actually am a registered Democrat voter, and I expect to be voting in my state's primary when the time comes. I'm not going to tell you which one. So we'll start with my first thoughts on the debate. And my first thoughts relate to the format. I wasn't a big fan of the format. I thought, again, there were too many people, and they weren't answering each question individually. Only a couple people got to answer a couple of questions, and then they moved on to another topic. It didn't give each candidate a chance to really distinguish themselves from the other ones, except for the person that they were debating against. And it really wasn't so much of a debate as just a series of stump speeches that were 90 seconds or 60 seconds long, however, and that really frustrated me throughout the entire process. And that really goes on to the moderator, Brian Williams, who I thought was very weak and very ineffective at keeping these politicians on topic. When he would ask a question, they would completely diverge into some other Lord knows what they were talking about for 60 to 90 seconds, and they never really answered the question, and that's on him to make sure that they stay on topic and on time, and he really didn't do that. Also, a lot of the questions were directed to, I guess, the superstars of the current frontrunners of the Democratic Party, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and to a lesser extent, John Edwards, which, again, in a format like this, I can sort of understand. They have the most money, and it's big television, so the Democrat Party wants to get their best faces out there, but it was really disappointing. You saw, actually, former Senator Gravel from Alaska was almost furious at the fact that he had been essentially glossed over for a good 30 minutes at one point. Out of a 90-minute debate with 8 candidates, no one should be getting more than 10 minutes apiece. So there's those thoughts. Generally, the topics that they asked were, for the most part, okay. Some of the personal questions I thought were very good, very valid in a forum like this to sort of separate people out. I was a bit disappointed that there were no questions relating to the economy or the job situation in general, export markets, things like that. But there was a brief question to Hillary Clinton on whether Walmart was good, and she would actually answer that question quite appropriately. I was very impressed with her answer on that, but for the most part, the conversation, the debate focused mainly on global warming and Iraq. And I understand that those are two big issues that are going to be affecting us in the future and affecting the political system at hand, but I, frankly, for one, was tired of hearing about Iraq. We know the Democratic opinion on Iraq. Bashing the Bush presidency on the Iraq situation is not going to make anyone any more points among the current Democratic voters, and among the swing voters, we're just tired of hearing about it. So I really wish that the Democratic Party, when having these questions sort of formulated in the process beforehand, had said, look, we're going to get away from Iraq. They got away from the thank yous, thank goodness, in the beginning part, that we're all so tired of hearing the cliches, but I think it would have been a lot better if they just gotten rid of that entirely, or just focused on it to a lesser degree. Now for the actual candidates themselves. The people who I thought did very, very well out of this was Joe Biden, and I'll get to him in just a bit. But we'll start from basically my thoughts on each during the process and how we're going to go down. Bill Richardson, governor of New Mexico, he's like the poster child for political ADD. He was all over the place with his thoughts. One time he would answer a question coherently and intelligently and succinctly, and other times he would be all over the place, saying, first I'm going to do this, and second I'm going to do that, and third I'm going to do that, and fourth I'm going to do that, and he's going to do all these other things. And you're just sort of sitting there watching on television, and you're like, Bill, slow down. Just concentrate on one little aspect. And I know he's got a very short time limit, but I think it would have been a lot better for him and for us watching to just digest the question and then answer it. And he was sort of all over the place. I don't think that the presidential arena is going to suit him very well, just based on this one debate. Chris Dodd out of Connecticut, I think he's a senator, or if he was a former senator, sounds a lot like his name, Doddering. He didn't do anything really to separate himself out from a telephone pole, frankly. He got a little bit more publicity, but I think it was wasted. His answers were bland. He looked bland. He needs to dye his eyebrows to match the rest of his head. he's a nobody. He'll be done before they even reach the primary season. Senator Gravel, former Senator Gravel out of Alaska, was like the angry old man who wants you to get off his front lawn. The first question that they asked him was probably the reason why they did ignore him for another 30 minutes at the time. The first question they asked was about Iraq, and he said, these Democrats aren't doing anything. If they really wanted to get rid of the Iraqi stuff and the president, they'd have voted. He mentioned cloture, and also filibustering, which, again, if you're a political science major and you love congressional procedures, you're thrilled that somebody actually mentioned cloture. However, if you're like 99.9% of the rest of the American public and have absolutely no idea what the heck he was talking about, he just sounded like the ranting and ravings of a lunatic. Did he make a good point? Absolutely. Was he right? Absolutely. But the way he came off and the way he said it was like he was just an angry old man who hadn't gotten his, old man special at Denny's. He's completely taken himself out of the race the way that Howard Dean did, although at least Dean managed to make a name for himself before he faded off into oblivion. Gravel he won't even make it out after that debate. He'd be lucky to find another 5 people to finance him. Representative Dennis Kucinich out of Ohio. Obviously, the man is very, very far to the left, very, very idealistic. He's going to cater to the people who like to write their names on recycled paper and drive hybrid cars, and that's fine. But the man has a 4-foot comb-over. He's not going to win. I'm sorry. He's got absolutely no chance of winning with a massive comb-over. If you're bald, and you deal with it. Get rid of the comb-over, Dennis, then come back and talk. Joe Edwards. He's basically tried to cut himself out of the same Bill Clinton cloth as a Southern Democrat, sort of an aw shucks type guy who's obviously very bright, very well educated, but doesn't have the chutzpah or the charisma that Clinton exuded during his campaigns in 92 and 96. And that's what you want out of a president. You don't want a guy who's all shucks all the time. And obviously Edwards' big haircut fiasco certainly didn't help his cause. Clinton and Obama, they were the front runners. They got asked most of the questions. They were polished. They have great teams behind them. They answered, well, they didn't answer the questions, but their responses, their stump speeches, I guess at the time, were suitable, adequate. Neither of them really lost any ground. Neither of them gained any ground on anyone. Again, I wasn't really impressed by either of them. I wasn't disappointed in either of them. They were what they were. It's Barbie doll presidential candidate. You know exactly which one you're going to get. They're cookie cutters. Nothing special from either of them, quite frankly. If the Democrats choose either one, I would hardly call it an inspired choice at the end of the day. Yes, they're both political minorities, Clinton being a woman, obviously, and Obama being African American, but they just don't do it for me personally. The person who did, though, Joe Biden, senator from Delaware, I was fantastically impressed by this man. He was unbelievably intelligent, very succinct. He was the only person the entire night who didn't use all 90 seconds or 60 seconds or 30 seconds, however long he got, to answer a question. When he said yes in response to, can you lead America on the world stage? He got the best laugh out of the night and showed the man had a bit of a sense of humor, quick-witted, and the answers that he did give when they were a little bit longer were very intelligent, coherent, put together properly. For somebody who's been really sort of on the edge of the political spectrum from the public sort of standpoint, he did an absolutely fantastic job and really sort of set himself apart from the rest of the candidates. So, like I said, it was an impressive showing by Biden. The other ones really didn't do anything to really help or hurt their causes. The major front runners, obviously Gravel didn't help himself at all. Dodd didn't help himself. Kucinich said the same thing that he was saying 4 years ago when no one cared, and he still has a 4-foot comb over, so he's out of the way. And Richardson, I think Richardson has a future in the national political arena if he wants to get into it, possibly as a vice presidential candidate. I think he would make a fantastic running mate with any of the candidates up there at this time because he is clearly a very intelligent person, but he just seems to be all over the place, and that I think is something that a president would want out of a vice president, a guy who can just sort of go off and maintain the